You're watching the Idaho Supreme Court. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment. You're watching the Idaho Supreme Court. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment. You're watching the Idaho Supreme Court. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment. You're watching the Idaho Supreme Court. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment. You're watching the Idaho Supreme Court. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment. You're watching the Idaho Supreme Court. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment. You're watching the Idaho Supreme Court. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment. You're watching the Idaho Supreme Court. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office.
Including members of the memorial committees who are with us today, members of the bench and bar, relatives and friends of deceased members of the bench and bar. Each year we pause to commemorate the passing during the previous year of members of the bench and bar of this court, and accordingly we've convened today to pay tribute to our deceased colleagues. We're pleased to have several past members of this court and others with us today that I would like to acknowledge at the outset. We have Chief Judge David Grattan of our Court of Appeals with us today, along with Judges Jessica Lorello and Michael Tribe of that court. We appreciate their presence. We have Idaho's Attorney General Raul Labrador with us this morning. Welcome, sir. We also have retired Justice John Stegner. Good to see you, Justice. Along with Roger Burdick, Senior Justice of the Court, who's with us, also a member of the committee. Retired Justice Jim Jones is with us. Thank you for being here. We acknowledge Judge Noah Hillen and Judge Deborah Grasham. Judge Hillen is the Chief Bankruptcy Judge for the United States in the District of Idaho, and Judge Grasham, U.S. Magistrate Judge. Stephen Kenyon is also here, the U.S. District Court Clerk. Eric Lethinen, our State Appellate Public Defender, is present, along with Joe Pirtle, Counsel for the Idaho State Bar, and Maureen Braley, Idaho State Bar Executive Director. If I've missed any, thank you to the rest of you for being here, members of our committee. At this time, Reverend Tracia Deal from Red Rock Christian Church in Boise will offer our invocation.
Thank you, Chief Justice. It is a delight to be here with all of you this morning. Will you please pray with me? O God of life, in whom we live and move and have our being, be present now as we have gathered to lift up our beloveds who are now separated from us by death. Though we cannot recall them back to life, we can remember them and fix their memory within our hearts for as long as we shall live. We thank you, O God, for these women and men who dedicated their lives to serving their neighbors and to the ideal of justice for all. They worked tirelessly to create a world where the vulnerable are protected and where all are respected. And for this, we give thanks. And while we come in joy with our memories, we also come in sorrow. O God, meet us here and bind our wounded hearts with your love and healing power. Grant us a degree of your understanding and peace as you lead us, as always, in your ways. We pray this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Deal. At this time, the Fairmont Junior High Choir will now offer the musical selection, The Star-Spangled Banner, directed by Bill Kloppenberg. If the choir will come in, please stand for the end. Thank you. Be seated, please. At this time, Senior Judge Barry Wood will present the memorial address.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning and welcome. I asked Melanie, the clerk, asked me if I had any requests for this, and I said I had one. Please make sure the podium was short enough that I could look over it. And so, thank you. She accommodated me. Thank you all today for coming. My name is Barry Wood. As the Chief said, I am a senior district judge, a product of the Homedale Public School System, migrated to Gooding, where we now live, and have been there for quite some time. As the chairperson of the 2025 Supreme Court Memorial Committee, and on behalf of our committee members, the first group I'd like to thank is the Supreme Court proper, because we know how busy they are, and to take the time to put on this program and to allow us as the committee to put this together and deliver these remarks and bring all of you here for this, to honor both the judges who have left us as well as members of the bar who we've lost in 2024. The committee also wishes to thank the Idaho State Bar because, and the staff at the State Bar, because after all, without the State Bar and everything they've done for us, none of us would be here today. And they've been supportive of at least myself and others ever since I started. And that's the reason we're gathered here today, is because we're all members, or we're members of the Idaho State Bar. So I appreciate that. Also wanted to thank the members of the Memorial Committee who have put in their time and input into this program. And I'll tell you how great this committee is, and others should probably learn from this. This committee is so good, we never even had to meet once. We were able to put our business together with a few phone calls and a few text messages, and I got lined out by Roger Burdick, and off we went, and so we're here. And we appreciate all the help, though, that each of those members of the committee put into this. And lastly, of course, I do want to specifically thank the Committee of One, and that is Melanie Gagnapan, who actually puts this all together and gets the show in order. So thank you, Melanie. This memorial service is a long-standing and annual tradition of the Idaho State Supreme Court, and one which I believe serves a very noble purpose. That is to briefly pause from our day-to-day commitments and in one place, at one time, recognize and pay tribute to each of those members of the Idaho State Bar who we have lost in the past year. This is both a solemn and a celebratory event in my view. It is solemn because we lost friends, family, and professional acquaintances, but celebratory because we recognize the tremendous legal services provided to countless Idahoans, businesses, communities, and so forth by those who have passed. This annual event is also noteworthy because not only does it maintain the tradition, but it does so despite the fact of the tremendous growth of the Idaho State Bar over the years. And for those of you who may not know how bar numbers are assigned, when every individual becomes admitted to the State Bar, you get assigned a number by the State Bar. My number is 1947, precedes my birth year by 4 years, and I was admitted in September of 1976. My son Pete, who is here and a member of the bar, his number is 10,263. I'm told that the numbers now being assigned by the State Bar are somewhere in the 12,000s, in fact, getting up in the 12,000s, somewhere around 12,680. So that's an enormous increase in the State Bar, the membership. And despite that, this is still Idaho, and we take the time to do things like this personalized memorial service here in Idaho. And to me, this adds a very personal and meaningful touch to our whole existence and the culture we're trying to build and keep and established here. The practice of law has also changed significantly. In just my practice time, we have gone from the days of manual typewriters and electric typewriters. Tiny handful of people had IBM Mag cards when I started in 1976. Most law offices did not have copy machines. We used carbon paper and the like. Now we've gone to all the way in that time to high-speed printers, scanners, advanced computer systems using AI software, and all manners of things we never dreamed of 50 years ago or so. Service. Service used to be all by person, things like that. Now it's service by email, service by text. All of those things are changing. Even the Idaho Supreme Court now has e-filing for lawyers. They have Judge Edition for judges, whereby judges can get on the computer if they have internet access and look at the case files from anywhere on planet Earth. And that is a tremendous advancement for us. But that's how all of this has evolved in really less than 50 years. And it's pretty remarkable that we still adhere to these cultural things that we've established and this court has established. And there is a constant of in the changing practice in the state of Idaho with that respect, and that is the goal of adherence to professionalism, the rule of law, and equal justice for all. We strive for the ethical practice of law. We still value fairness, honesty, integrity, and civility. We try to resolve legal disputes under a process which values procedural fairness and equal application of the rule of law to everyone. We also require continued legal education with an eye towards keeping current on the law. Our citizens, businesses, communities, and the other two branches of government, state government, all rely on us, members of the Idaho State Bar, to apply these goals and virtues and to keep them going. These are the most important virtues under our system of government, whereby disputes are resolved civilly, consistently, and with public order. Which brings me specifically to those that we honor here today. A group of true professionals, both men and women, each of whom did yeoman's work in this profession, whether as a lawyer or as a judge. While each of these individuals' obituaries tells a story of their lives, discusses their families and some of their many accomplishments, in my view, these obituaries simply do not do justice to their respective legal work and history that they provided for us and all of Idaho during their legal careers. In that regard, I truly wish there was some way that we had to keep track of the legal work that various people do in the bar so we could remember them at times like this, whether they were oral histories or otherwise, but some way to track their many accomplishments. There has to be a way, and I wish we would search as we go forward for a way to do that, so more than just what can be expressed in a simple obituary, how we can remember these people for all the magnificent work that they do. A couple quick examples that I can think of just off the top of my head when I was putting this together are Professor Craig Lewis and his work with the Idaho Rules of Evidence. For those of us who practiced pre-1985, when there wasn't the codification, if you will, or collection of the Idaho Rules of Evidence, and they were scattered in court opinions and George Bell's book on evidence and things like that. You know, getting all of these rules of evidence in one place with, in order, by chapter, discussing the legal cases that decide various pieces of them. What a tremendous benefit to the Idaho law, as well as Craig Lewis's Handbook of Law for the Idaho Lawyer. Another tremendous accomplishment, in my view, was Justice Dan Eisman's significant work when he was a district judge, and he was put in charge of redoing and putting all into one place the Idaho rules, or Idaho criminal jury instructions. And what a magnificent thing that's been for the practicing bar in Idaho to have all of those criminal jury instructions in one place. They're now easy to find, easy to access, easy to put together a set of instructions. It's those kinds of accomplishments that I'm kind of talking about. And practitioners in this state benefit from those works and that effort every single day that we are here. I also know that many things that lawyers and judges do, some have historical significance, many have public interest. Lots of the water decisions have not only historical but public interest matters. Lots of the decisions that courts make, whether at the trial level or cases that are prosecuted by lawyers up through the trial level onto the appellate courts, they have real significance to our business community, to our criminal law community, I mean, all kinds of things. And so many of these good works that lawyers do simply don't get remembered and don't get saved, and that's kind of where I go with that. I asked myself, what kind of questions would you ask some of these people if you were given the chance? And I would ask questions kind of like, besides the ones I've mentioned, public interest questions and so on, things like, what was your favorite trial and why? Who was your most favorite client or most interesting client and why? What was the funniest thing you've ever encountered in your practice or in a trial? Do you have an interesting story about a particular jury? Trial judges have lots of interesting stories funny stories about what happens in jury trials and so forth. A lot of fun things happen in trial courts, believe it or not. And I would even ask, sorry here, Chief, for this, I'd even ask which appellate decision you disagree with the most. And the list goes on and on. To me, those stories would be fascinating, and I'd like to hear them. In this regard, I also wanted to mention that several of our colleagues passed away quite young, in their early 40s, which is always a bit more difficult than those who are able to live a longer and fuller life. And the effect of such early death is obviously unknown on how each of them may have served Idaho's legal system and its citizens. It is likely, however, that hundreds of Idahoans will never receive the benefit of their legal counsel and their professional guidance, and that's disappointing and sad. Lastly, I wanted to mention that each of those who are honored here today are listed in the Attorney Memorial Resolution, the last page of your handout or program there, which Sarah Almanson, who is our Administrative Director of the courts and a member of the Idaho State Bar, will read into the record today, specifically naming each of those who passed in 2024. This reading of this memorial resolution and a review of the respective obituaries provides each of us an opportunity to reflect upon our personal and professional relationships that we may have had with one or more of these individuals. I know for me personally, in 2024, I lost 3 law school classmates, several dear friends, a law professor who I had a close relationship with, and a family member who was also my law partner and fellow judge. Relationships that have lasted and existed for 50 years or more. In fact, in one case, my case, Dan Chadwick and I were pages together in the Idaho State Legislature for the entire session in 1969. That's a long time ago. And when I used to go over to do some work for the court over there in the legislature, being in the Senate and Jude Rules Committee, just harken back to 1969 and what a change there's been from 1969 to present. But that's how long some of those relationships have lasted. And I'm certain that all of you in attendance here today have had similar experiences, similar relationships, and similar losses. This is one of the reasons why this memorial service is so meaningful to each of us and so personal in so many ways. And again, that's one of the reasons I'm so grateful for the Supreme Court for sponsoring this program, and keep it going, please. It's meaningful. In closing, I again urge you to read each of these obituaries and reflect upon the wonderful legacies of each of these people we have lost. Each was truly a remarkable person in their own way. As we honor each of them today for their professionalism, their service, and contribution to all of Idaho, may we also learn from each of them how to contribute more and do better as we continue on. May they rest in peace. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, Judge Wood. We appreciate the time and effort you put into shepherding our committee, even via email or text, and in providing your remarks today. Thank you so very much. We will now hear from Sarah Olmanson, who will present the attorney resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice. May it please the court. One more time. I am happy to read the memorial into the record. I want to say that as a member of the bar, I was blessed to work with some of the folks that we lost this year, to appear in front of some of the folks that we lost this year, and to be blessed by their friendship. Idaho Supreme Court Memorial Service, March 12th, 2025. We, the undersigned members of the Memorial Service Committee, appointed by the court for the year 2025, respectfully submit the following resolution. Whereas the Supreme Court of the State of Idaho has designated March 12, 2025 at 10 a.m. as the time and place fixed to memorialize the passing of those worthy members of the Idaho State Bar, to acknowledge the substantial contributions made by each of them during their lifetimes to the defense of freedom and the pursuit of justice, the perpetuation and improvement of our government of laws, and the orderly process of constitutional government. And whereas with this memorial resolution, we gratefully acknowledge their outstanding service and devotion to the legal profession and the pursuit of justice, we affirm our own commitment to those principles and ideals which always guided our departed colleagues. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, this honorable court and the members of its bar, as the names of the judges and attorneys who have departed are presented for lasting recognition, do now offer our permanent tribute to those departed members. In sincere recognition and appreciation of their outstanding service to this state and nation, and pause for a moment in honor and fond remembrance. Justice Daniel T. Eisman, Boise, June 4th, 2024. Judge William B. Dillon III, New Plymouth, September 27th, 2024. Judge Earl T. Whitman, Jr., Meridian, October 7th, 2024. Attorney Barry J. Lubavowski, Haley, March 27th, 2023. Ryan R. McNeese, Spokane Valley, Washington, April 20th, 2023. Kenneth L. Hewitt, Dedham, Maine, May 22nd, 2023. Mark E. Vovos, Sr., Spokane, Washington, November 27th, 2023. Reginald R. Reeves, Idaho Falls, November 17th, 2023. Catherine K. Durant, Boise, January 1, 2024. Tevis W. Hull, Sagal, January 3rd, 2024. Roland D. Watson, Coeur d'Alene, January 6th, 2024. Rodney R. Satram, Boise, January 10th, 2024. Jack W. Smith, Chugiak, Alaska, February 4th, 2024. Robert A. Maynard, Boise, February 21st, 2024. Robert J. Becker, Cascade, February 22nd, 2024. David Tony Cantrell, Boise, February 28th, 2024. Richard K. Smith, Twin Falls, March 10th, 2024. Greg M. Haney, Soda Springs, March 17th, 2024. Craig B. Marcus, Boise, April 8th, 2024. Richard L. Harris, Caldwell, April 11th, 2024. Daniel G. Chadwick, Emmett, April 23rd, 2024. Courtney LaFranchi, Eugene, Oregon, May 23rd, 2024. Donald F. Pickett, Oakley, May 30th, 2024. Sean R. Bonney, Boise, June 17th, 2024. Jeffrey H. Boiler, Bonners Ferry, June 22nd, 2024. David M. Gaba, Seattle, Washington, June 23rd, 2024. John T. Sahlberg, Boise, July 4th, 2024. William M. Killen, Boise, July 13th, 2024. Roy A. Gowie, Cataldo, July 17th, 2024. D. Craig Lewis, Inglewood, Florida, August 4th, 2024. Stephen C. Smith, McCall, August 11th, 2024. Michael A. Clappin, Cheney, Washington, August 26th, 2024. Robert John Insinger, Ketchum, September 14th, 2024. Jennifer A. Hearn, Boise, September 22nd, 2024. William J. Ray, Las Vegas, Nevada, October 11th, 2024. Grant B. Pankhurst, Lava Hot Springs, October 13th, 2024. Robert L. Bauer, Coeur d'Alene, October 14th, 2024. Tyra H. Stubbs, New Meadows, November 24th, 2024. Fred Palmer, Sagal, December 4th, 2024. And Stephen J. Nemick, Coeur d'Alene, December 20th, 2024. Be it further resolved that this resolution be recorded upon the minutes and records of this court to serve as a perpetual remembrance in honor and respect to those deserving individuals. And be it further resolved that we extend to their families our sincere sympathy, and that the clerk of this court send a copy of this resolution to the family of each individual whose passing is memorialized on this date. Dated this 12th day of March, 2025. Signed Senior Judge Barry Wood, Justice Colleen Zahn, Senior Justice Roger Burdick, Sarah Omenson, Laird Stone, and Mike Howard.
It is so ordered. Thank you, Ms. Omenson. A special resolution commemorating University of Idaho College of Law Professor D. Craig Lewis has been prepared by Justice Colleen Zahn. Justice Zahn will now present this special resolution.
Thank you, Chief. May it please the court, members of the committee, all of you in attendance. Thank you for making time to join us here today to celebrate D. Craig Lewis, who will always be known to me as Professor Lewis. Sorry. David Craig Lewis was born to Frederick D. and Lois Lewis on September 9th, 1944 in Champaign, Illinois, and grew up in the Midwest with his siblings Rick, Danny, and Diane. Craig attended Northwestern University, where he met and later married Karen Geary. After graduation, the two of them moved to New Haven, Connecticut, where he attended Yale Law School. Daughter Cindy was born in 1968, and he graduated Yale in 1969. After law school, the family moved to Denver, where Craig practiced law. He was a partner at the firm of Pendleton, Sabian, Guthrie, and Lewis. Son Adam joined the family in 1972. In 1975, the family moved to Moscow. Craig joined the faculty at the University of Idaho Law School, following in the footsteps of his dad, who also taught law. He quickly got involved in his adopted hometown, serving many years on the Moscow Planning and Zoning Commission. In 2005, he was given the Idaho State Bar Association Professionalism Award for his career-long example for his fellow attorneys of the epitome of professionalism. He wrote the Idaho Trial Handbook, which analyzed Idaho law and serves as a reference book for Idaho attorneys and judges to this day. He was proud of teaching the Lewis and Clark Show with Merlin Clark at the Judicial Conference each year. Craig was an exacting teacher and held his students to a high standard. That's an understatement. More than one student said that while his classes were difficult, they always appreciated what they'd learned when the course was done. One memorable story he used to share was about when a particular Supreme Court justice came to give the Bellwood lecture at the UI and requested to go fly fishing while in Idaho. Of course, Craig was tapped to organize a trip for him. He retired from the University of Idaho in 2007, having taught thousands of students during his career. His daughter Cindy remembers going out to dinner with him several times in Boise and having a former student stop by to greet Professor Lewis. Students had also been known to chase him down in airports all over the country. Karen and Craig separated in 1994, though they remain close friends. Craig married Donna Lyons in 2006. They spent the last 18 years happily traveling, spending time with friends, and enjoying their various pets. Craig was always good at puzzles and solved many crossword and Sudoku puzzles as part of his daily retirement routine with Donna. He also volunteered regularly at and was on the board of directors for his local food pantry in Florida. Craig was an avid outdoorsman and enjoyed rugby, hunting, fly fishing, and whitewater rafting. He played rugby with the Harlequins in Denver and served as the faculty advisor for the University of Idaho club team, Blue Mountain, and he also played with them. Later in life, Craig also played a few times with the Colorado Old Boys Rugby Association, the Cobras, when invited to join for a tournament or match. Craig was proud to have helped his friend Joe McGurkin start Burgers and Flies, an event that raised funds for the Special Olympics. They brought those who fly fish together so the experts could teach the newbies how to tie flies and also to eat, drink, and be merry. He was a natural storyteller and could captivate audiences with his distinctive voice and his hand gestures. He loved a good joke, especially if he was the one to tell it. Very true. Captain Lewis had many happy weeks floating on various rivers with his rafting friends. Whether it was the Lochsaw, Selway, Colorado, or Salmon River, the captain could always be counted on to give the safety talk before the trip set sail. He and a few friends developed the international rules for cans. He referred to them as the laws of the game, a game which resembles only slightly horseshoes. Many a river trip included competitive cans games, with Craig ensuring that players only used a regulation-sized can, no tall course cans allowed, and the correct size of bail bucket as a receptacle, 5 gallons, no more, no less. Craig loved cooking and never met a recipe he couldn't make better. He considered himself a connoisseur of red wine, though sometimes we think he thought the taste of the wine got better the lower the price of the bottle. Family was important to Craig, and he also liked the idea that friends are the family you choose. He spent lots of time at the Garden Lounge with his hurrah family. His children remember him as a deeply honest person who taught them the importance of a good work ethic. Craig was preceded by his parents and brothers, Rick and Danny, survived by his wife Donna of Englewood, Florida, sister Diane Farrell of Venice, Florida, daughter Cindy of Moscow, son Adam of Seattle, and grandchildren, as well as his ex-wife Karen Lewis of Moscow, his hoorah family, they know who they are, as well as many friends, rugby teammates, and rafting buddies. I knew Professor Lewis as a student, and he was one of my first mentors. I didn't realize when I was in law school just how much he contributed to the education of Idaho's attorneys and judges. It wasn't until I graduated law school and I went to work at my first job, working for Judge Ronald J. Wilper here in Boise, that I learned Lewis was a go-to resource. I still remember the first time I was helping Judge Wilper work through an evidence issue, and he said, "What does Lewis say about that?" And I looked at him and I said, "Lewis? Lewis who?" And he said, "Professor Lewis, Craig Lewis, the trial handbook." It quickly became clear that my go-to resource and Judge Wilper's go-to resource was the Idaho Trial Lawyers, or the Idaho Trial Handbook. At the time, I thought maybe this was just a Judge Wilper thing, because he would tell me how the Lewis and Clark show, it was among the best, if not the best, evidence presentations he'd ever been to, and he looked forward to the judicial conferences for those presentations. And so imagine my surprise when I went on to work for Judge Perry at the Court of Appeals, and I went on to 2 firms in Boise, and there were always copies of the trial handbook, and at least once, often more than once, at those jobs, I would be asked, "What does Lewis say? What does the handbook say?" And as a result, his handbook became one of my go-to resources. I would start research questions there and get the lay of the land, and then I would branch out from there. As I mentioned, the Lewis and Clark show presented to the Idaho judiciary multiple times. Over the course of 12 years, Lewis and Clark gave 17 presentations to Idaho's judiciary on various evidentiary issues. Yes, that means they presented more than once in some years, and so I must not have been the only one. Judge Wilper was not the only one who found their presentations to be fantastic. I did like to think about the fact, because Lewis taught evidence at the College of Law for 32 years, and I'm sure he taught some of the judges at those conferences. I often wondered whether they had flashbacks to evidence during those presentations, and I wondered if he called on them and did Socratic method there. Probably not, but I like to think he did. So those were the reasons I asked the court to make a special resolution in honor of Professor Lewis. The Idaho Trial Handbook is still in use today. It continues to be updated. The last update was November 2024. I am thankful to whoever is continuing to do those updates, and I hope its value is not lost on these more recent generations of Idaho lawyers, because it truly is a special resource and an enduring legacy. And it doesn't only cover evidence, it covers all topics associated with trial practice. I also wanted to recognize his repeated and enduring contributions to educating the judiciary. But before I read my special resolution, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about his mentorship. The list that Ms. Omenson read includes a number of fantastic mentors who all offer different forms of mentorship. I wanted to speak briefly about this because when I talk to either lawyers or judges or law students about mentorship today, there seems to be one sort of idea of what a mentor is, and it is an enduring, long-lasting relationship that involves coffees and lunches and is really kind of a friendship form of mentorship. But I wanted to highlight the kind of mentor Professor Lewis was to me because it was different and our mentorship was brief. And I share it to encourage all of you to think of mentorship, whether you're a lawyer or you're in another area, as taking many different forms and having different lasting or short-term durations. So I got to know Professor Lewis as his evidence student, but he was also the coach and faculty advisor to the University of Idaho College of Law trial team. And so I got to interact with him more than maybe some of the other students. And the trial team, when I was at U of I, was a 2-year commitment. And you joined your second year, and each team was 4 people, 2 2Ls, 2 3Ls. You were a witness your 2L year, so you could see how it was done. And then your 3rd year, you stepped up and you were a leader of the trial team, and you were one of the attorneys. My partner, my 3L year, was Sonia Lee Nooch, and we both took everything we could from Professor Lewis, and it turned out he was willing to give us whatever we were willing to take from him. Our mentorship relationship with him was very short. It was really maybe only 18 months to 2 years, but he had an incredible impact on both of us. And that's because he was giving of his time, he expressed confidence in our abilities, and he just cared about us. It became evident over the course of our time with him just how much he cared about us. And it's amazing what an impact you can make on another human being if you're just willing to share those 3 things. When Sonia Lee and I left law school, we really didn't have a lot of contact. I didn't have any. She had a little because she stayed in Lewiston with Professor Lewis. But what he taught us has endured, and it has stuck with us. She was just inducted into the American College of Trial Lawyers last week. I've pursued another path. She and I have stayed close. But it was Professor Lewis, who was my first trial mentor, who taught me you can't be anyone other than you are in the courtroom. Colleen, stop trying to play act, being a lawyer, work with your strengths, who you are. I had a nasty habit when we would practice our direct and cross-examinations of saying every time I would ask a question, and he said, you got to knock it off. And he finally said, I'm going to slam this desk every single time you say And it only took a couple of practices before I stopped doing it. And to this day, over 25 years later, I occasionally will slip an in there, and I can hear him slamming the desk every single time. He spent hours coaching us. He did not write what we did, but he told us from the outset, you two can go all the way if you're willing to put in the time. And I will give you as much time as you're willing to put in. And he was true to his word. And so he spent hours with us. Sonia Lee and I would work, and we'd write openings and closings and exams, and we'd practice objections, and we'd come in, and he'd spend several hours with us a couple of times a week, and we'd take his feedback back, we'd rework it, and we'd come back. He cared. He cared a lot, and he showed it through his actions. Now, the funny thing is, despite all that time he spent with us, the man didn't watch a single round of competition. We went to regionals that year in Portland, and the University of Montana had won for years in a row. Sonia Lee and I won that year. It was quite the coup. The University of Montana was not happy. Lewis wouldn't watch a single round. We tried to get him to come over and over, and he said, I can't, I'm too nervous. It's like watching my kids compete. I cannot. And so he'd give us a little pep talk, and then he'd go out and he'd walk, he'd go get a cup of coffee, and he'd meet us after the round. We went to Florida for nationals that year, and we made it to the quarterfinals before we were eliminated. And again, wouldn't watch a single round. He would leave, he'd go walk, he'd do something else. But he was there at the end, and he took us out to a very nice dinner to congratulate our successes in the competition. And he was always there after every round to say, what did you learn from that round? What can you use to make the next round better? And so the fact he cared about us, he had confidence in us, and he was willing to give his time meant the world to us. And I know it meant the world to Sonia Lee as well, because she and I have talked about it. And I often find myself wondering, and I'm a little sad, that I didn't ever reach out to him to express thanks for what he meant to us. So although that mentoring was of a short duration and it was of a pretty formal nature, it made us both better attorneys. And so I just want to say that whatever walk of life you're in, you can have a very positive impact on somebody, and you may not fully appreciate it. So I will be forever grateful to Professor Lewis and the role he played in my life. So my resolution, a resolution in memory of David Craig Lewis, 1944 to 2024, Professor of Law, University of Idaho College of Law. Motion in memorial to the Honorable Justices of the Supreme Court of the State of Idaho. The undersigned, a member of the Memorial Service Committee appointed by this court, respectfully submits the following resolution. Whereas, with this special memorial resolution, we gratefully acknowledge Dr. David Craig Lewis's substantial contribution made during his lifetime as a distinguished and beloved teacher and scholar, and author of the Idaho Trial Handbook utilized by trial lawyers throughout the state of Idaho. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this honorable court, the committee, and the members of the bar do now offer our permanent tribute to departed member Dr. David Craig Lewis in sincere recognition and appreciation of his outstanding service to this state and nation, and pause for a moment in honor and fond remembrance. Be it further resolved that this resolution be recorded upon the minutes and records of this court to serve as a perpetual remembrance and honor of respect to this deserving individual. And be it further resolved that we extend to his family our sincere sympathy, and that the clerk of the court send a copy of this resolution to the family as a memorialization of this date. Respectfully submitted this 12th day of March, 2025, Colleen D. Zahn, Justice.
It is so ordered. Thank you, Justice Zahn. A special resolution commemorating deceased Justice Daniel T. Eisman has been prepared by Attorney Peter Wood. Mr. Wood will now present the special resolution.
Thank you. May it please the court. I guess I could start briefly by acknowledging that, like my father, I'm pleased to have this nice and low. Apparently it runs in the family. In the Supreme Court of the State of Idaho, a resolution in memory of Honorable Daniel Thomas Eisman, 1947 to 2024, Supreme Court Justice. Motion in memorial to the Honorable Justices of the Supreme Court of the State of Idaho. The undersigned, a member of the Memorial Service Committee appointed by this court, respectfully submits the following resolution. Whereas, with this special memorial resolution, we gratefully acknowledge Daniel Thomas Eisman's service and devotion to the Idaho judiciary, legal profession, and the pursuit of justice, and affirm our commitment to those principles and ideals which always guided our departed colleague. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this honorable court, the committee, and the members of the bar do now offer our permanent tribute to departed member Daniel Thomas Eisman in sincere recognition and appreciation of his outstanding service to the state and nation, and pause for a moment in honor and fond remembrance. Be it further resolved that this resolution be recorded upon the minutes and records of this court to serve as a perpetual remembrance in honor and respect to this deserving individual. And be it further resolved that we extend to his family our sincere sympathy, and that the clerk of this court send a copy of this resolution to the family as a memorialization of this date. Respectfully submitted this 12th day of March, 2025, Peter A. Wood, Attorney at Law.
It is so ordered.
Thank you, Judge. Justice. Daniel Thomas Eisman died of natural causes on June 4th, 2024. He was 77 years old. Dan left this world surrounded by family and loved ones who took great comfort in knowing he would be reunited with his beloved wife, Sheila. Dan was born in Eugene, Oregon in February 1947 and was the second oldest of 4 children born to Richard and Joan Eisman. After graduating from Valley View High School in 1965, Dan began his undergraduate studies at the University of Idaho in Moscow. After 2 years of studies, he voluntarily enlisted in the Army, where he served as a crew chief and door gunner on a Huey helicopter gunship in Vietnam. Volunteering for military service during a time when so many sought to avoid the draft was just one of many ways in which Dan's selflessness was made apparent. After 2 tours in Vietnam, he was honorably discharged from the Army and decorated with 2 Purple Hearts, 3 medals for acts of heroism, and various other medals. It's my understanding that Uncle Danny was shot out of the air multiple times. Following Dan's service in Vietnam, he returned to the University of Idaho to attend law school and carry on the family legacy of practicing law. Dan graduated cum laude in 1976 and began his career in Homedale, Idaho. During this time, he married Sheila Wood, my aunt, in November 1982, and they began their life together. Dan and Sheila had a son, Matthew, to join Sheila's daughters, Kathy and Christy. And Christy is here today, along with Dan's daughter, Jasmine. Dan went on to have a distinguished career serving in the Idaho judicial system as a magistrate judge in Owyhee County, a district judge in Ada County, and ultimately a chief justice of the Idaho Supreme Court. Dan established himself as one of the preeminent legal minds in the state throughout his tenure of public service and was regularly called upon for advice in navigating thorny legal issues. He was responsible for helping to create Children's Voices, Inc., the Ada County Drug Court, and drove progress which made Idaho's judicial system more effective for all Idahoans. Dan was especially motivated by his compassion for the marginalized and disadvantaged, particularly children and those suffering from addiction. These accomplishments will outlive Dan and continue to aid in the betterment of the lives of countless individuals. Those who knew and loved Dan will remember him for his kindness, his good humor, and his faith. As a dedicated Christian, Dan was passionate about the study of Scripture and found enjoyment in discussing and writing about various elements of faith. Throughout his life and in his retirement, he was an avid writer, a passion he enjoyed with his wife, Sheila. He also loved hunting, fishing, camping, and exploring his artistic side, specifically stained glass. Dan was also an exemplary chef and would happily tell you stories about his soufflés, his biscuits and gravy, which I can attest to, and dark chocolate torts. Now, Dan was preceded in death by his parents, Richard and Joan, his sister, Susan, and of course, his beloved wife, Sheila. Dan is survived by his siblings and their spouses, Joan, Catherine, Brent, Randy, Wanda, Karen, Gilbert, and Deborah, as well as his son, Matthew, and his daughter, Jasmine, as well as his stepdaughters, Kathy and Christy, along with their spouses, Mike, Scott, and their grandchildren, Aaron, Hannah, Allie, and TJ. So now that the formal part is done, I just want to briefly touch a little bit on what Uncle Danny meant to me. And I guess following Justice Zahn's mentorship theme, I guess that will be mine as well. It occurred to me sitting in here that everybody, at least that I know in here, is extremely distinguished in their legal careers. And one of the things that I don't think that you understand is that the better you get at something, the more you don't understand how difficult the simple things are to learn or how important the simple steps are because you just know them. Anytime you try to teach somebody something new, you just sit there and go, wow, I can't understand. They didn't understand that. And the better you get at this, the more apparent that becomes. And what's also apparent is in our society today is that nobody has any time. And I don't mean that to be, it's just a fact. Everybody's busy. And mentorship is incredibly hard to find. And especially mentorship from somebody that knows what they're doing. So yeah, you can go down the hall and talk to a colleague or something, but they're as blind as you are. And so to have somebody that really knows what they're doing, that is willing to give you the time and believes in you. And those two, to me, when I think about, the ingredients of what a mentor is, mostly it's time and belief. And those are extremely rare to have today. And in the last several years of Uncle Danny's life, he was able to give me that. And I will be absolutely forever grateful for that, to be able to go to him and say, I'm having this situation. And he was, I don't know Professor Lewis, but I can assure you that Uncle Danny was brutally honest at times and painfully so. But he was also, he wanted you to be better, and he somehow believed that I could be. And he would look at my stuff and say, this is wrong, do this. But he had the time and he was willing to give it. And I will be absolutely forever grateful for that. And as I sit here today, I often think about, in the final year of his life, he lived maybe 6 blocks away, and it was fabulous to go to his house and go over things with him. And I don't know, once every couple weeks, something will come up, and I'll think to myself, I sure wish Uncle Danny were here. I sure wish Uncle Danny were here. And so I just want to say thank you, Uncle Danny, not just for what you did for the state of Idaho and everybody here, but certainly what you did for me. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. A special resolution commemorating deceased Judge William B. Dillon III has been prepared by Judge Brian Lee. Judge Lee will now present this special resolution.
Please the court, justices, judges, members of the bar, family, friends. I am honored and humbled to make this presentation on behalf of Judge Dillon. We're all talking about mentors today. He was a mentor of mine and a giant of a man in the law as a human being. I talk for a living, or at least that's part of my living, and so I seldom find myself unsettled in a group, but today I do a little bit, so I appreciate your patience should I stumble a little bit. The Honorable William Bill Dillon III, born 1950, lived to 2024. He lived in New Plymouth. He passed quietly with his sister by his side on September 27 of 2024. He graduated from Nebraska University of Law and moved directly to Idaho to pursue his legal career and his love of hunting and fishing. He was active in the North American Versatile Hunting Dog Association, sporting clays, bird hunting. He loved fly fishing in the summers and spent time in the Idaho Fly Fishing Association. He was an avid fly tying enthusiast and rod building enthusiast. He also loved to return to Nebraska each year when he could to hunt deer and pheasants with his lifelong friends. He was an active and successful sporting clay and skeet shooter. When he moved to Idaho, he met his future wife, Nisha, at Albertsons after he worked up the nerve to ask her out. They formed a lifelong friendship and a love that lasts through the ages. They loved the rivers of Idaho, where they camped, fished, and enjoyed time with many friends. Bill and Nisha raised many bird dogs. As owners of the Black Canyon Kennels, they had pups that were sold all over the United States. Bill left 3 dogs, Kate, Socks, and Shorty. Bill worked in Idaho as a deputy county prosecutor and attorney for Idaho Fish and Game, but most people knew him as Judge Dillon. Judge Dillon served the state of Idaho as a judge and senior judge for many years until he permanently retired in 2022. He served in the 3rd Judicial District, working mostly in Payette and Canyon counties. He was an exemplar as a judge, possessing a keen legal mind and an unwavering commitment to justice. He particularly enjoyed being able to perform marriages for members of his community and never missed an opportunity to serve a couple in this way. At the time of his retirement, he was the longest-serving judge in the 3rd Judicial District. Judge Dillon was thoroughly respected, by his fellow judges, the attorneys that appeared before him, and the citizens of the 3rd District. He was extraordinarily committed to service and answered the call to perform his judicial duties whenever it came, day or night. I remember driving out to his place for search warrants on many occasions in the middle of the night. He was always ready with his old school analog recorder and a pot of coffee. Judge Dillon was also a mentor, providing feedback to newer attorneys and encouraging them to improve their practice. I succeeded Judge Dillon in his position in Piatt County and likely would not have done so but for his encouragement. Judge Dillon was a judge's judge. His thoughtful work and tremendous commitment to the judiciary and the citizens of the state of Idaho will be long remembered and missed. Bill is survived by his sister, Kathy Parrish, and by his brothers, Denny Dillon and Richard Dillon, as well as brother-in-law Ed and Cliff Holloway. He was preceded in death by his loving wife, Nisha, parents Bill and Peg Dillon, and brother John. I had the pleasure of working directly with Judge Dillon, with Bill, the pleasure of bird hunting with him, sitting in his office and discussing legal issues. He taught me and other attorneys to be practical and thoughtful and workmanlike in solving the problems that were presented by the cases in front of us, and I will forever be grateful for his contribution in my life. By way of resolution, in the Supreme Court of the state of Idaho, a resolution in memory of the Honorable William Bryan Dillon III, 1950 to 2024. Magistrate Judge, 3rd Judicial District Court, motion in memorial to the Honorable Justice of the Supreme Court of the state of Idaho. The undersigned, a member of the Memorial Service Committee appointed by this court, respectfully submits the following resolution. Whereas, with this special memorial resolution, we gratefully acknowledge William Bryan Dillon III's service and devotion to the Idaho judiciary, legal profession, and the pursuit of justice, and affirm our commitment to those principles and ideals which always guided our departed colleague. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this honorable court, the committee, and the members of the bar do now offer our permanent tribute to departed member William Bryan Dillon III in sincere recognition and appreciation for his outstanding service to the state of Idaho and to the nation, and pause for a moment in honor and fond remembrance. Be it further resolved that this resolution be recorded upon the minutes and records of the court to serve as a perpetual remembrance in honor and respect of this deserving individual. And be it further resolved that we extend to his family our sincere sympathy, and that the clerk of the court send a copy of this resolution to the family as a memorialization of this date. Respectfully submitted this 12th day of March, 2025. Brian Lee, Magistrate Judge. Thank you.
So ordered. Thank you, Judge Lee. A special resolution commemorating deceased Judge Earl T. Whitman Jr. has been prepared by Judge David Eppes. Judge Eppes will now present this special resolution.
Thank you, Chief Justice. May it please the court. It's my pleasure to say a few things about Judge Earl T. Whitman Jr. I am not related to these two woods over here, but I too am grateful for the shorter podium. None of us have great physical stature. Earl Whitman Jr., a longtime resident of Mountain Home, Idaho, passed away October 7th, 2024. Earl was born on June 26, 1928 in Kapuskasing, Ontario. Earl grew up in Canada playing hockey and tennis with his brother Jim. During World War II, the Canadian taxes were too much for that family, so they moved to Appleton, Wisconsin in October 1942. Earl started driving at age 15 and delivering ice for the family business, Whitman Ice and Fuel. When the war ended, however, people began buying refrigerators and demand for ice dropped to nil. So the family went to farming. And it wasn't long before Earl learned that cows needed milking twice a day, 7 days a week. So then came the adventure of the U.S. Air Force in December of 1947. Earl served until November 1st, 1976, and achieved the rank of Chief Master Sergeant. During his time in the Air Force, and I didn't realize they had these many versions of the plane, But during his time in the Air Force, he grew up working on Republic Air Traffic, the F-84B, F-84C, F-84D, F-84E, F-84Gs, and finally the swept-wing F-84F with nuclear capability. That's a lot of planes. During his almost 30 years with the U.S. Air Force, Earl was stationed at numerous bases, both at home and abroad. He was in England in June 1950 at the start of the Korean War. In May 1952, his unit transferred to RAF Wethersfield, England. Earl Jr. found the love of his life in London, and he and Betty were married October 22, 1955. The next transfers were to Billy Mitchell Field in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, then 8 months at Craig Air Force Base in Selma, Alabama, and back to RAF Wethersfield for 4 more years. During his tour, the unit would go to Greece, Morocco, Libya, and Algiers. Earl would always refer to playing golf on Muammar Gaddafi's golf course in Libya. Yes, Earl was a golfer, and I was witness to that many times. Next was a 3-year tour at Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota. After that tour, his next assignment was to Soesterberg Air Base in the Netherlands, and that was a tour that the family really enjoyed. His next assignment was to Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. After about a year there, he realized that he needed an SEA tour to make chief, Southeast Atlantic. And so after about a year there, he volunteered for Vietnam and was assigned to Phan Rang Air Base about 150 miles north of Saigon. He was line chief in the F-100 Squadron, 352nd Tactical Fighter Squadron. Eventually, he did receive that line number for chief and a line number for Thailand. He went to Thailand for the 436th TF Wing, Tactical Fighter Wing. 1 year later, he was back in Mountain Home Air Force Base until his retirement, November 1st, 1976. Following retirement, Earl enrolled in Boise State University, and then he received a job with the Elmore County Commissioners. Working in county government was a career-broadening experience, and he often referred to his greatest accomplishment at that position, completing the EDA grant in 1977 that was approved and allowed the county to receive $150,000 so the annex to the Elmore County Courthouse could be built. And it is still there today. I was there yesterday. It is used by the entire prosecutor's office. That's some history there. In April 1981, the magistrate judge position became vacant at the Elmore County Courthouse, and the commissioners encouraged him to apply. Out of 39 applicants, he got the job. And he was sworn in by Judge John Selman on June 1st, 1981. He retired from that job in March of 1991. However, the Supreme Court kept him active until November of 1998. While serving as a magistrate judge in Elmore County, every day in court there was always a bailiff to keep order and to see that defendants appeared when called and order was maintained. Earl went through 5 different bailiffs for various reasons, passing away, sick, retiring, etc. That's a lot of bailiffs in 10 years. In addition, he would have his colleagues in the courthouse, both District Judge Robert Rowett and Magistrate Judge John Selman. Earl became a Shriner in 1977 and was very active in the El Coritin Lizzies. He and Betty attended many parades in the U.S. and in Canada with their many Shriner friends. He was also a member of the Mountain Home Elks Lodge. After his retirement from the courthouse, Earl resorted to golfing most every day, which I wasn't a big golfer, but I can attest to that. He was there all the time. He also performed wedding ceremonies when the local magistrates and district judge could not do them. Again, I was witness to that on occasion. During his lifetime, Earl had 7 holes in one. I don't know anybody that has that many. There probably are, but that was impressive. He was also very proud to have taught both his children and his grandchildren to play the game of golf. I spoke with some lawyers and his former clerk in trying to prepare for today. I also spoke with a few people around the courthouse that remember him. All of the comments that I received from all of those people were very consistent. Judge Whitman was friendly, he was personable, and he was professional. And to quote one longtime attorney in Mountain Home, Jay Friedley, who I talked to about a month ago, this is what he had to say about Judge Whitman and its uniform. Quote, "When you appeared in front of him, you knew that your client would be treated fairly and very professionally. Clients always felt that their case was heard and considered as it should be by someone who cared for them concerning the results and outcome of the court's decision. Uniformly, the attorneys always felt their cases were heard by a caring and professional judge." End quote. The 2 words that came out throughout all of the comments that people gave to me over the last couple of months were caring and kind. And we've heard that word all morning long in talking about these great people. His clerk mentioned to me that in all the years that she knew him, he never once raised his voice. And I pressed her on that. Could not almost believe that. And she said, not once in all those years. That's impressive. I also knew him, saw him at the courthouse, around town, and obviously at the golf course every time I went there, which was not very often, but he was always there looking for balls in the ditch, et cetera, et cetera. My observations of Judge Whitman were directly in line with all of the comments that I just talked about. He was missed by the judicial system when he left the bench and is still missed today. And I can remember Judge Selman lamenting that he couldn't cover our court when we had conferences, et cetera. It was just too much time had passed. If there's one set of things we can all take from Judge Whitman, it is this. Work hard, be passionate about something, and most of all, be caring and be kind to everybody. And those are the words I have to say about him. At this time, I will present the resolution to the court in the Supreme Court of the State of Idaho, a resolution in memory of Honorable Earl T. Whitman, Jr., 1928 to 2024, Magistrate Judge, 4th Judicial District. Motion in memorial to the Honorable Justices of the Supreme Court of the State of Idaho. The undersigned, a member of the Memorial Service Committee appointed by this court, respectfully submits the following resolution. Whereas, with this special memorial resolution, we gratefully acknowledge Earl T. Whitman, Jr.'s service and devotion to the Idaho judiciary, legal profession, and the pursuit of justice, and affirm our commitment to those principles and ideals which always guided our departed colleague. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this honorable court, the committee, and the members of the bar do now offer our permanent tribute to departed member Earl T. Whitman, Jr. in sincere recognition and appreciation of his outstanding service to this state and nation, and pause for a moment in honor and fond remembrance. Be it further resolved that this resolution be recorded upon the minutes and the records of this court to serve as a perpetual remembrance in honor and respect of this deserving individual. And be it further resolved that we extend to his family, our sincere sympathy, and that the clerk of the court send a copy of this resolution to the family as a memorialization of this date. Respectfully submitted this 12th day of March 2025. David Eppes, retired magistrate judge.
It is so ordered. Thank you, Judge Eppes.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
At this time, the Fairmont Junior High Choir will favor us with a musical selection, Kaleidoscope Color, directed again by Mr. Bill Kloppenberg. Thank you to the choir and to Director Bill Kloppenberg for the musical selections that have brought definitely a great spirit to our meeting today, and we thank you for your talent and sharing it with us. At this time, Reverend Deal will offer the benediction.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Let us pray. O God, our strength and our Redeemer, you lead us in ways of nurture and renewal in order that we may live honorably to your glory. Even in times of testing, your rod and staff are a comforting presence to us. As we surrender our lives to you again, even in this most trying time of the dark valley, we hold on to your promise that your goodness and mercy shall be with us all the days of our lives, and that our hearts may dwell with you every day. With confidence, we entrust these servants to your unfailing love and overflowing goodness. Lord, we give you but your own. Accept them as they are with all their frailties as well as their strengths, and enfold them into your everlasting arms. Now strengthen us through the gift of your Spirit to face the future with assurance that you stand with us. Grant that changes of life may leave us stronger as we journey through life. Comforted by your abiding presence, help us to knit more firmly the ties that bind us one to another. Renewed by your love, help us to love in ever larger circles, so as to embrace your people everywhere, till at last we are all united eternally through Christ. May we all receive your blessings and joy without end. Amen.
Thank you. On behalf of the court, I would like to thank Justice Son, Mr. Peter Wood, Judge Lee, and Judge Eppes for preparation and presentation of the special resolutions today. I want to thank Judge Wood for being our speaker and chairperson for the Attorney Memorial Committee, along with Justice Son, Senior Justice Roger Burdick, Sarah Olmanson, Michael Howard, and Laird Stone for participating in preparation of the attorney resolution. I also wish to thank Reverend Deal for her participation, and thank you to the Fairmont Junior High Choir again for their enjoyable musical selections. You're cordially invited to a reception in the lobby just outside of this courtroom, and at this time these services are concluded and this court stands adjourned.